Okay, let's take a look at Maya's Create menu. This is pretty much the most crucial menu we could find, especially in an application which is about creating things. This is our primordial soup menu. We can see at the top here we have our NURBS primitives, polygon primitives, subdivision primitives. We've got lights and cameras. We've got a whole section to do with curves. We've also got some measure tools and text. And locators, annotation. These are the kind of main things that I'll concentrate on. This is fairly reasonably easy to translate as well, because most creation software have a menu like this one. In Blender we call it the add menu. We can see it there. This has got all the same kind of things again. We've got mesh, which is our polygonal primitives. We've got curves here. We've got the NURBS surfaces. We have the text, lamps and cameras. And some other things that we can see in there. Obviously, we can also drive that same menu with the Shift A shortcut. We can see exactly the same things show up there. So that should all be reasonably straightforward. I'll just make a couple of notes about this. I'm just going to delete that object and go Shift A and then add a cube. We can see that we get in the tool shelf this add cube has occurred, but note that it's only the location and rotation information. In fact, we can just delete that cube. Everything gets added at the location of the 3D cursor. So if I press Shift C to center that cursor, and now press Shift A to add another cube, we can see the location of that cube is now at the location of the new position of the cursor. And again, we can see that we get our information there. In Maya, what you will usually get is the subdivision options. So you could maybe create the amount of geometry we want to contain within this cube. In Blender we don't really do that. We just probably just then take that as a separate option, a separate operation, an additional operation, of which then we can start to decide exactly what we want to use there. However, some of these tools, like for example the grid, is essentially the same as a plane, but we do get the option to preset the exactly how much we want to be subdivided. So we can see there, if I just toggle into the edit mode, we can see that information there. Bear in mind that once we toggle into edit mode, we lose that information. That's the same information that we can drive with the F6 shortcut key, and you can see we just get toggle edit mode now, whereas before we can go F6 and then we get that information again at the location of the cursor in the 3D view. So that's just something to bear in mind there. It's easy to lose that information. Also, it's most commonly used for the smooth surfaced objects like the sphere or a circle, is when we get exactly how dense we want that to be, how the kind of resolution in a sense of this spherical object. So that's just worth noting. The more angular meshes, for example like the plane and the cube, don't by default come with things that we can then alter the subdivisions of in that single operation. So just bear that in mind. A locator is essentially an empty. That's what they would be kind of called in Blender, sort of a null object, if you like. And we can see we get the same information there. We can then grab another empty and move that out of the way. So we've got these two empties now, and this will be useful for a demonstration for just a moment. If we just jump back to Maya, what we can see here is we've got our locators. So if we just add a locator in there, into the scene there, and move it out of the way. This is basically an object that won't render. It's just useful to have to visualize things. We can see we get that same kind of icon as well. But something that's key about this, if we go to our measure tools, just do the distance, just click 2 points in space, we can see it does create two locators, and it creates a distance dimension. In Blender, basically we would need to create the two empties ourselves, and then we will be able to see the measure tools for them. But let's just discuss measure tools a little bit more. The measure tools, by default, there is an add-on for measuring. We'll come to that in a second, but first of all, the only measuring tools we get that are on by default is when we enter into edit mode, and we can enter we come down to the mesh display area here. We got numerics. We can turn on edge length there, which will, if I just highlight that face, we can see that the edges here are 1.7 blender units long, or if I just grab one particular edge, we can clean up the view there slightly. So it's going to just give us a readout for what we have selected. We have face angle here as well. If we just grab that face, we can see now we get all these are 90-degree angles, as we would expect in the grid. And then the face area is 2.89 blender units squared there. So that should be all fairly straightforward. The limitation to that is obviously it's only within this single object. You can only enter edit mode and sort of edit one particular object at a time. So if we wanted to measure the distance between objects, that's where obviously these two locators are going to come, the two empties that we have here are going to come into play. But first, for this, we'll need to have a look at our user preferences. I'm just going to open that with Control Alt and U, come to our add-ons, and then just search for the measure related tools. Oops. And then let's see if we can find them in the all. So we have this measure panel, which looks to be in progress at the moment, but we'll just check that on. And then now what we get, or at least we should get, is in the property sidebar now, we have this additional option. And you can see we've activated it, and we now get some more readouts to do with measurement. So that's essentially the equivalent of those measure tools there.